family, we love to share read alouds together. And today I want to share with you guys my review of all the books that we read in 2022 to 2023 out loud together as a family. I'm going to share with you guys what we loved, what we didn't like as much, and what had the potential to go in the least favorite category if it had not been for this one thing. So let's get started. Usually in a typical year, there would be no way for me to come and share with you guys all the books that we read in that year because there would be far too many and it would be way too long of a video. However, this year, due to a lot of life circumstances, we ended up reading a much smaller list, and that's okay. I'm here to tell you that's okay. I usually do this as a collab every single year with a few of my YouTube friends, sharing what they love and what they didn't like. And I have done that again this year. I will link that down in the description for you guys. Let's start out with the book that we liked the least. And I kind of hesitate saying liked the least because it's actually just one we didn't finish. And that is Johnny Tremaine. This book is really neat. It is set during the Revolutionary War period. It incorporates the Boston Tea Party and a lot of the politics that were going on at that time. It has a ton of plot twists and turns. However, it's a very thick book. And while I've read many thick books to my kids before, this one lost my girls pretty quickly. All four of them were just kind of uninterested. We got about halfway through and it was just kind of pulling teeth. There was a lot of whining and fussing when it was time to do the read aloud. And I just decided this was the battle that I didn't want to pick. My boys really loved it, and so I told them they could go ahead and finish it on audiobook. I do think it's a book I personally like, but I think it was just a little too old for my girls, and they are 11, 10, 5, and 4. So it's okay. We pitched it. And you can too. I don't know if you know that, but if you don't like read aloud, you can just stop. Next up are two books that my kids really enjoyed, but didn't make it on my favorites list. They're kind of in between or neutral for me. One is Miracle on Maple Hill. This was a really cute story. It just was nothing particular stood out to me with it. It's about this little girl and her parents who are going back home to visit their grandparents, and they live on Maple Hill. And they have this maple farm where they are gleaning maple from all the trees. I don't know all the technical terms, don't come for me, but they have a lot of fun, and she gets to see all the little miraculous moments around her. This one, what I loved about it was the fact that the father figure in this book actually came home from the war, and he was experiencing a lot of PTSD. He was not himself, and she does a great job, the author does a great job of describing what that's like as a kid watching someone else go through that, how there are moments that he was like his old self and moments that he wasn't, and all of those struggles. And what was neat is the reason why they went to Maple Hill in the first place was hoping that a change of scenery would really help heal him, really start to re-enter the world around him again, and it did just that. There's a lot of fun adventures in this story, so it's definitely one I would recommend reading. It just wasn't one that was like a great standout to me. The next one was Little Britches, and we're actually only about halfway through this one as I am filming this video. I think we'll be done with it by the time that this video comes out, so I can't give a full review. But what I will say is this one is about a little boy who's living a rancher's life. It's really fun to hear the shenanigans he gets into. It's a very old school way of writing. I will say there is a decent amount, I hesitate to say decent amount, there is language in this book. It is very culturally based. It is very much like the ranch hands, and it's not vulgar, but for some it may be disturbing. We listened to it as an audiobook, so we heard all of that. I have older kids, so I use the opportunity to talk to them, to have those discussions about when we use these words and when we don't, and things like that. But if you are reading with your kids, you may want to read it yourself so that you can edit some of that out. They do talk about a little boy getting into a fight and into a tussle with some of the other kids in school, and his dad kind of encourages him, you know, that he should get the first punch in and things like that. So lots of opportunities to talk, but really it is a cute and fun story. The reason it didn't end up in my favorites, honestly, is not because of the other stuff, because I don't shy away from having some of those tough conversations or those opportunities to discuss what we do and why we do it. However, I didn't like the fact that the author does not lay the stage for the book very well. And some people love that. It just jumps right into the story. And kind of as you go through these stories, each chapter is its own little adventure in this boy's life. And as you go through the story, you pick up the context and you figure out who the characters are and where the setting is and all this kind of stuff. but it's not your traditional way of writing. And so I think it just threw me off. I did enjoy it, and as an audiobook, it was really fun to listen to, and we're like I said, we're enjoying it. My husband's listening with us, we're laughing. There's lots of great moments in here, but just a few warnings, and just to be aware that if you have younger kids, you may need to work through a little bit more of pausing in your reading or in your listening to talk through the character and the setting and helping them understand the plot, because it is kind of easy to get lost for younger ones. Now, two that I can't show you, I just put a post-it note here so I would remember, because we only did them on audio and I don't own the physical copy, is two books that are like this, but not this one, from the Trailblazers series from Christian Focus Publishing. They were Rescuers by Night, which is the story of Amy Carmichael, and No Mountain Too High for Gladys Aylward. These books are definitely above like a Who Was series. As you can see, there is a decent amount of text here, but they are a level below as far as difficulty and length the Christian heroes then and now. So if you are looking for engaging missionary stories, either for your kids who are not quite ready for the Janet and Jeff Benj books, you can definitely give them these. Or if you're looking as a family to just kind of dip into someone's life instead of sitting there for a little bit longer period, these make a great read or listen to. One book that had the potential to be on my least favorite list, but thanks to this playlist last year, actually made it to a much higher spot on our list, was Walk the World's Rim. Walk the World's Rim was actually on Rachel from Sevenall, who's on this playlist. It was actually on her least favorite read aloud list last year. She said she did not like it, but she shared why. And because of that, it made all the difference in the world to us. She talked about how she didn't really love the ending as much. She also got very lost as to who the characters were and what was going on. Not that she got lost, I guess, as an adult, but that it was hard for kids to keep track of who the different characters were, because sometimes they have multiple names, and they're just, again, not the best at laying out clearly who's doing what when. That being said, because I heard that review, I was able to make sure that I was very clear with my kids as to who people were. I would pre-read a chapter or two so I could figure out what was going on, so I could explain it better to my children. They ended up absolutely loving this book, like begging for more. The ending, nobody liked. I assigned each of the kids an assignment to write their own alternate ending. It could be as long or short as they wanted. Some did a paragraph, some did an entire page or two on how they wish they would have ended, but they had to kind of stick with the theme of the book and the writing, and it was really neat to see what they did. So I'm so thankful for this collab, for making this book a way more enjoyable read, because I knew what some of the pitfalls and struggles might be. The last two books and my favorites would have to be The Witch of Blackbird Pond. This one was one that we actually started out physically reading, and I almost put it down, but then I switched over to audiobook, and it made all the difference in the world. This became my kids' favorite book this year, or one of the two, I should say. This one follows a girl named Katie. She is coming to a new area, to a new town. She is very unaware of the world, a little naive and privileged, and is going into a very different society as she goes to live with her aunt and uncle, who are living in a Puritan community. There is no actual witch in the story, just to be clear, in case you're concerned about that. There is just an elderly woman there who is a Quaker, who they label as a witch, because she doesn't believe what they believe. This brought up a lot of good discussions with my kiddos about what we believe and why we believe it, and how we can communicate the truth in love. My absolute favorite of all time had to be Carry On, Mr. Bodwitch. I was not expecting this to be my favorite, guys, at all, but it was so good. I will say that a portion of this was due to the fact that I actually used the reader's guides, the literature guides that Rachel over at Seven and All, their family, puts out through their company, Where'd You Learn That? I will link that down below. They make these literature guides for less than $5 a piece that are so easy to utilize. It had vocabulary that were going to come up in the chapter, and it would help us to talk about that before we read it so the kids could more easily follow along. But this book is a must in read aloud form. Like, you could hand it to your kids who are old enough to read it, and they could read it, and that would be great. But it's really a missed opportunity if you don't read this one aloud with your kids, because there are so many opportunities to talk about God, to talk about struggles in life, to talk about perseverance and relationships and how to deal with grief and how to deal with happiness and joy. I don't want to tell you any of it because I really don't want to give it away. I will say there are some sad parts in the story, so prepare yourself mentally for that. But it was seriously such a good book and probably one of the best books for teaching your kids lessons and opening up great discussions with them. I hope you've enjoyed this Read Aloud review. Be sure to check the playlist over here to see everybody else's top and least picks for the year, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye!